Hey art therapist friends, welcome back to my channel, and my name is Christina Tostana, here to help art therapists build their brands and finding their niche so they can build a loyal community that values them and their work. So again, today I'm going to be talking about stereotypes and to really bring in more inclusivity when we are designing websites. So the first thing I want to talk about today is this importance of inclusivity. So unfortunately, websites cater to a certain demographic, and we want to eliminate that as website designers, because being more inclusive to other communities, so it could be elders, maybe it could be like little kids, or maybe it's neurodivergent individuals who maybe need more simplified readings, or maybe more visuals, or maybe they need audio and visuals to really have the best experience. But again, we need to really utilize this inclusiveness in our communication materials. And a website is a communication tool, and it really needs to be more inviting to other minorities that need help as well, right? Because there could be elderlies that are looking for art therapy, but maybe can't use a website. Maybe they don't know how to navigate it or use a computer. You don't know. There's so many possibilities. Or maybe there's people out there that really want to delve into art therapy, but maybe they're more of an auditorial learner. So you have to use different tools on your website to meet those needs. Again, there's a lot of different branches that you can go here. Again, you don't have to tick all the check boxes on this, but really start leaning towards that. And this idea of the philosophy around creating more inclusivity in design work is really becoming something that is very much going to be normal in the next couple of years, because accessibility in general and inclusivity, is for sure going to be a very big priority in 2025, especially on the accessibility note. Because as somebody who has studied accessibility, there is this big goal that globally everyone's trying to reach, and it's to be fully accessible by 2025, whether that be in buildings or websites, etc. So there's no rush, obviously, but to really start thinking ahead and being proactive in these big times, because accessibility is something that is going to really change the world when it comes to universal design, where maybe instead of stairs, we're using ramps for everyone so that it's included. And this is no different than actual website work as well. So maybe we go to simplifying even more in the navigation system so that there's not too many buttons. And maybe our buttons in general are maybe buttons that are larger than normal because they have to meet the phones. And maybe people who have, trouble navigating around or clicking. So there's a tap feature. Maybe we need to really dive into auditorial speech when it comes to loading up our page. Maybe our page has to greet via audio, to the user, for those who prefer audio. Again, these are all things that we are exploring as humans, but as a universal design level, the goal here is to try to eliminate as much barriers as possible in the communication realms. And if we can do this in a couple of different steps, we're already on the right track. So that's something that I really just wanted to share, because there's this lot of chat about, inclusiveness, whether it's, gender equality, whether it's the minority equality, whether it's, the disabled community that needs more inclusiveness here. There's a lot of different avenues, but in general, we're really trying to shift towards something that a collective, we all understand as human beings, whether we speak, whether we just sign language, whether it's just reading through colors, etc. There's so many different tools. So the next point I wanted to talk about is really embracing the diverse audience. And it's not even just about addressing, the minorities, so the neurodivergent individuals, the individuals with disabilities, or individuals that have cultural barriers as well, because there's language barriers. So what would be really essential here is to kind of dive into some of the cultural aspects of people around the world, because again, your website is international. It's a global place. So anyone from around the world can access your website. And what would be really cool here is to dive into ways that you could still communicate with those that have a language barrier. So using images, understanding, what is okay to use and what is not okay to use in, several different types of cultures. But it also comes back to your ideal client as well, because maybe your ideal client is a little bit more of a focused on the culture. So maybe you're targeting a certain culture. Who knows? But you still want to be very open and receptive to the other cultures out there. And knowing that would certainly make sure that you're keeping a positive image on your brand in general and the overall user experience too. So even though there's language barriers, you could still opt in for doing translations on your website. That's a great way to create, user experience in a simple way, where maybe you hire a translator, maybe for Mandarin or maybe for French, to have different versions of your website in different languages. I think that's a great way to start implementing things. And I think there's plugins as well. So if you can't hire anybody, to actually change the language and translate it, you can use plugins, I believe, on WordPress for sure. You could probably use something on Squarespace, but I'm not too sure on that one. But I know that there are tools out there to help you translate. And you could probably use ChatGPT as well to shift your languages. I think ChatGPT might be a good tool for that as well. Again, these are all new to me as well. I'm still learning in terms of how to shift translations over, but through my experiences, there are plugins out there and that you can use to change from Mandarin to French to English to Spanish. But really enforcing that into your designs really is a step in the right direction for more inclusivity and reaching more of a diverse audience, not just maybe the locals, but more of the internationals, because you could be missing out on possible opportunities. So another thing I really wanted to talk about, and this is probably more towards the community of the disabled, but to really access the barriers in accessibility. So what I mean by this is, if people can't use a mouse, they have to use a keyboard to toggle through your website. Make sure that you run a test on your website of using just your keyboard to see if the functionality still work the same. That could be one step in the right direction of eliminating those barriers. And as I mentioned before, the language barrier, to use those plugins as another stepping stone into eliminating those barriers. Color contrast. So this is a big one as well to those that might not see all the colors. They might only see selective colors. So what would be essential here is to run a test on those, but also do the grayscale test, where you take a screenshot of your website and put your website in grayscale using any visual editor tool that you have on your phone or on your computer. It doesn't matter particularly which one, as long as you can change the image to grayscale. And when you change it to grayscale, you'll see if any of the colors that turned gray are merging together. Because if they're merging together, the grays, then that means there's not enough contrast. So if you can push more with making it more lighter or darker in your color tones, then you're on a path of creating more contrast. And that eliminates another barrier of not sure, differentiating sections or differentiating colors in a picture, etc. Those are different types of barriers that you can address in terms of accessibility in that manner. So I'm going to leave you today with 5 takeaways that you could start implementing more inclusive content and inclusive elements in your websites. So the first one that I really wanted to talk about, is embracing diversity in your images. And what I mean by this is bringing in different types of people of color, people from the disabled community, maybe some elderlies, maybe some younger individuals. Again, it really depends on your actual ideal client as well. But either way, you still would want to bring in different individuals. So maybe different individuals in terms of, gender, different cultures, different maybe looks, different attributes. There's so many different things that you could do to really bring in more diversity, but that's a step in the right direction, because when you take pictures of individuals that are more there's more variety, there's more community, there's more social acceptance, then that's going to get you in the right direction of being more inclusive, looking more inclusive, and feeling more inclusive, where you bring in all different people, shapes and sizes as well, that they'll feel more comfortable working with you when you communicate through the images. Not just, all women of white, or all women that are skinny, or, all individuals who are black, or, all male dominant communities, etc. You are bringing in more people from different minority groups or different cultures to make it much more harmonious, because that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring in more harmony, and not a better way to do it with images, right? And through the images, you're having these individuals interact with each other, and they're creating emotion. And when you do that, then that definitely stimulates more emotional connections. And that makes it a whole lot easier and wholesome, because people love seeing other people interact with each other, even from different backgrounds and different, generations, or different cultures, countries, backgrounds. Who knows? There's just an abundance of different things out there. But imagine them interacting. It would be such a beautiful symphony. What I want to really share is prioritizing accessible features. So yes, you don't have to do everything in one day to make your website accessible, but great ways that you can just start implementing is look to your fonts. How are your fonts doing? Are they easy to read? Ask a friend to say, hey, can you look at my page and see how my fonts are doing? Do they read okay? Can you read them easy? Is it comfortable on your eyes? etc. Those are great ways to start changing up some of your fonts. And if some of your fonts are, not too easy to read, then I would definitely just simplify your fonts to a very clean font. So I would maybe suggest like Helvetica. That's an easy, quick fix to making something easy to read on the web. There's probably other ones out there too that you could just opt in for, but they have to just be clean fonts. Nothing curly, nothing script, nothing cursive, because that really causes problems when it comes to reading. Now, another thing you can start implementing is putting text with your images. So when you're uploading an image to your website, you usually have an option to put in an alt text, and that is just describing what the image is about. That's pretty much it. But when you do that, that's already putting you on the right path to being more accessible. Those that you're putting on your website or even blog posts, you always want to put in subtitles and having, a big header, a small subtitle, and then paragraphs. The more you break it down like this, the much easier it's going to be for a regular person to read, of course, because it's organized and sectioned accordingly. And when a screen reader goes through your website, they'll tell the user, this is the title, this is the subheader, and this is the paragraph. And when it's broken down like that, the user will feel much more comfortable with sitting and listening and reading. And when it comes to, let's just say, Google, when they are indexing your page for search engine optimization, when you have your content broken down like that, the header, the subheader, and the paragraphs, that's already a step in the right direction on an SEO standpoint, because now you're actually taking the right steps in becoming more recognizable and to becoming even easier in searching. So it's a win-win on both sides. The way to you is to do some testing with a diverse audience, because yes, you can ask your friends and family, but they are very similar to you. I would reach out even further to ask maybe one of your ideal clients, or ask just a complete stranger just to go through your website so that they can give you the feedback that you need. Because again, your website is not supposed to just be something pretty. It needs to be functional, and it needs to work for, a collective amount of people. So if one person is having trouble navigating your site, that means the collective is going to have the trouble as well, because they're all quite the same when it comes to navigating something. So really collect enough feedback for your site so that you can make the proper decisions to improve your website. Because again, your website will never be finished. It is always going to be something to improve on the website. But what you need to do is certainly take the steps to really implementing it much further. To really iterate here is be careful of the cultural nuances. So make sure that it's, cultural sensitive to whatever nuances are out there in the cultures, in other different cultures, because something that you might be showcasing on your website might mean something different in another culture. So being very wary about that is so key to creating a good reputation for yourself, but also continuing to be very inclusive as a brand. So really honing into all the cultures and understanding each of them to ensure that nothing would cross any boundaries or create any kind of negativity, because that is very essential when it comes to building relationships with those cultures. Any of the cultural sensitivity content, look to the language that you're using, any kind of symbols or imagery that you're using. those are usually triggers to some other cultures. So just be very mindful of what you're putting out there so that there is no misunderstandings, because that's where problems run out. And when it comes to communication gaps, that's usually where some of the issues do come up. So just look at all of the elements that you're using and just be very wary of what it could mean to another culture, and if it's something that is concerning, and to obviously change it and make it more harmonious so that it's not going to trigger anybody. So the last takeaway for the day is creating more inclusive language. So the language is basically ensuring that the language that you're using is respecting, gender, ethnicity, etc., those really sensitive areas for other individuals. So just make sure that your tone is respectful when you're talking through your writing or your videos. Just make sure each of those areas are just something that brings a broad range of curiosity to people when it comes to using, the right tone, that it's not coming off offensive and it's being more harmonious and creating, positive feelings and something that's more inspiring to someone else. 5 takeaways for eliminating those stereotype issues and becoming a little bit more inclusive within your website design work. So I hope that was helpful in today's video and that you could take those valuable tips with you today. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to put it in the comments box below and I'll be sure to answer them as soon as I can. So I hope to see you around for more future videos. Bye!